Anyway, Rachaad White is the next player we're going to go to of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is down 3.3 spots, 44.4. Listen, finished as the RB7 last year, tied for 10th in running back targets with 70. He was a top 12 running back in 47.1% of his games. That's tied with guys like Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry. I know we all wonder what is life going to look like without Dave Canales being there, who is now the head coach in Carolina. I personally like Rachaad White. I like him at his cost right now, 44.4. Like I mentioned, the average draft position. I know a lot of people mentioned Bucky Irving. I'm not really worried about Bucky Irving in year one. To me, it sounds a lot like a player that we'll get to in a little bit, and I'll actually next, and then I'll expand on that thought. But I'm not incredibly worried about Bucky Irving. I am a little bit worried about Dave Canales being gone. I don't think he's getting 70 targets, but I still think that Rachaad White is a player who can be successful in this Buccaneers offense. Anthony, how are you kind of assessing this here? Are there other players going around Rachaad White that you'd rather have than him? Or this also, again, we have to say, this also is how you're forming your draft in the first few rounds.
Yeah. So I'm going to start here. I don't have a lot of Rachaad White. Last year, Rachaad White, where we were getting him, he was a league winner. This year's a little bit more expensive, and I'm out on Rachaad White. People talk about the term, right? One of those fantasy football buzzwords I like to, get on people for, but the dead zone running back. My version of the dead zone running back isn't the Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris. My dead zone for the running back position is Josh Jacobs, James Cook, Rachaad White, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker. I don't, I like the receivers so much better in this round, where if I'm not investing in a running back in the first 2.5 rounds,
Sure.
or I get a good one, and then I go like a hero running back. I like the running backs going after these guys so much more. Guys like Najee Harris, who could have, he's the prototypical Arthur Smith back.
Can I just ask one question before you finish your thought, though? Because you're talking about dead zone running backs, and and I get it. The one thing I would say is, did that change at all for you, for Josh Jacobs in particular, with AJ Dillon now being on season-ending IR?
No,
and we know there's Marshawn Lloyd there.
Listen, I'll sync with that. I'll sync with that ship, because
I'm with you. I just think that's something that people would want to know. That's why I'm bringing it up.
The reason why is because the historic philosophy of LaFleur. You talk to Packers people, they like, oh, we like Emmanuel. LaFleur loves Emmanuel Wilson. They can also go sign a running back. The rookie is eventually, like, this isn't a long-term injury. Marshawn Lloyd's going to be there. So no, this doesn't move the needle for me. Okay. And that with this early of a pick, like these guys, starting at Jacobs 36.1, and then down to the last one I mentioned, in like a Walker 47.5. Like, I'd rather invest in wide receiver or tight end at those price points. So let's focus back in on Rachaad White. Rachaad White last year, like I said, big time value, big time lead winner. So why am I out on him? No, number one, he was one of the most inefficient running backs. Want to know how bad it was? Want to know what turned me off on? I remember early off season, I was looking at Chuba Hubbard, and I'm like, wow, this guy was one of the more efficient running backs in the NFL. Rachaad White was just as inefficient as Chuba Hubbard. In fact, Rachaad White, 3.5 yards or 3.5 true yards per carry with a 3.6 actual yards per carry, 57th in the NFL. 33rd yards per catch, yards per touch. Now, pretty good evaded tackles, 6th. Yards created, 2nd. Not great when it comes to breakaway runs. Like, Najee Harris had I believe a top 10 or 12 breakaway run rate, where Rachaad White, and everybody hates Najee Harris. Rachaad White, 32nd. Like, Rachaad White, excellent receiver out of the backfield. I just think Tampa Bay, like, if Bucky Irving is a thing, he's going to take touches, valuable touches, especially in between the tackle touches. Now, Rachaad White, of all qualifying running backs, had the 6th lowest rushing yards over expected rush attempt last year. Out of 63 qualifying running backs with at least 60 plus carries, White was 48th in yards after contact per attempt. Like, not a very good running back.
Yeah.
And, if we look at the reports on Bucky Irving, somebody comped him out like, hey, this could be a Kyron situation. And why is that important? Because the offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. So I am full fading Rachaad White, and I'll invest in Bucky Irving many, many rounds later because this is real. I think Bucky Irving earns a role. How do you, if you're Tampa Bay, you want to win football games, you're going to keep feeding the most efficient or one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL? You're really going to give him, where was his rushing? 272 carries. You're going to give one of the most inefficient running backs in the NFL 290 or not 272 carries against second most. That's not happening. Okay. That is a pipe dream if you think he is getting that workload. And this is like a Josh Jacobs, very workload dependent. I am not chasing a workload of an inefficient running back. I'm just not doing it.
I don't hate it. I just think that the percentages that I'm going to bring up with the next player that we're going to talk about, I think kind of correlate with what I think will happen in Tampa. But I also understand what you're saying, and I get that you don't want to chase it, and that's completely fine. This is why we're doing this show. I'm